Okay, when we last left this problem, we had just finished the exciting confidence interval estimate, and we determined that there was a difference between call center 1 and call center 2. Okay, because the confidence interval estimate did not contain 0, that is, even with a margin of error, call center 1 always took less time than call center 2. Now the question is, conduct a hypothesis test to determine if call center 1 responds faster than call center 2, use T of alpha of 1.651. So we have the same specs as the earlier part, but now it's a hypothesis test. So our hypothesis statements, which is part F, says what are they? So our null is going to be call center 1 is response time. Response time is greater than or equal to call center 2. Okay, that would be our null. Our alternative, what we think is happening, is that call center 1 is less than call center 2 in terms of response time. So those would be our hypothesis statements. So then a one-tail test with a rejection region in the lower tail. All right, now our decision rule then, and this is going to be a negative 1.651, our T of alpha, as given here in the problem. So what we want to do then for our decision rule then is we say if the test stat is less than negative 1.651, reject the null, otherwise do not reject. Okay, so if our result lands in the rejection region, then we reject the null. All right, so we've done F and G. Okay, what is our test statistic? Okay, so we're going to use this equation here, and the good news is that we have already calculated all the components we need for this in the earlier part of the problem. So you remember in our hypothesis statements, as long as there's no numbers here, we're assuming there's no hypothesized difference. So x bar 1 minus x bar 2 was negative 21 from the earlier part of the problem. And then this part here, s sub p multiplied by 1 over n1 plus 1 over n2, or the square root of those things, was the numbers were 36.55 multiplied by the square root of 1 over 120 plus 1 over 135. Okay, and that result, when we calculate all that out, is going to be a negative 4.5795. Okay, so you may get something slightly different than that, but that is our test statistic. All right, so the decision then, or what we would say then, looking at our decision rule, which is kind of scrawled down here, if the test statistic is less than 1.651, negative 1.651, I should say, we'd reject the null. Well, negative 4.5 here is less than negative 1.651, meaning it's in the rejection region. So we will reject the null here, and we will say that call center 1 response time is less than that of call center 2 based on our hypothesis test. Okay, so we've done those questions. Now the last one says, are the results of the confidence interval and the hypothesis test consistent? Okay, so the answer to that is yes, they are consistent. If you recall, even with the margin of error, our confidence interval for the difference between the two call center response times was always less. So call center 1 is always less than call center 2. Likewise, this hypothesis test falls in the rejection region, and so that is consistent, those results, right? That if what would be inconsistent is if you had a confidence interval like is shown here, and we did not reject, we did not reject the null. That would be inconsistent, or vice versa, if you had a confidence interval that contained 0, and then you rejected the null in the hypothesis test, that would be inconsistent. So these results that we're finding here are consistent. That is, we reject the null and make the same conclusions here, and the conclusion being that the call center 1 is faster in terms of response time than is call center 2.